Welcome to Unspoken AFFIRs. Some stories don't begin with fire. They begin with silence. It's an ordinary night that should have meant nothing. It's a night that should have faded into the blur of 100 others. But then, in the quiet of a living room, on a couch where I had sat countless times before, something shifted. If I had known what was waiting for me that evening, maybe I would have turned off the TV, gone to bed early, and never sat down beside him. But life doesn't give you warnings. It doesn't stop to tell you which choices will change everything. It only gives you moments. And once you step into one, there is no going back. It was a Friday night, the kind that stretches out endlessly. When you're alone, sat in the living room with Noah. He wasn't family by blood, but he had been around for years. His parents were close friends of mine and of my late husband, Mark. In many ways, he had grown up in the shadow of my household, coming over for dinners, helping Mark with little projects, hanging around the edges of our lives like an extra piece of family that never needed explanation. When Mark passed away 2 years ago, Noah kept showing up. At first, I thought it was pity or a sense of duty. Maybe he felt he had to look after me the way Mark might have wanted. But as the months turned into years, I realized it was something else. He wasn't just helping me. He was anchoring himself to me, too. The house had lost its laughter after Mark's death. The walls carried memories, the rooms carried echoes, and silence seemed to grow in every corner like ivy. Grief has a way of hollowing you out, carving pieces of you until you hardly recognize yourself anymore. I kept telling myself I had to be strong, that I had to live on in some meaningful way for Mark's sake. But the truth is, I was surviving not. Living in survival is a cold, lonely thing. Noah's visits softened that. He was a warm presence in a house that had grown unbearably quiet. That night we were watching a movie, some predictable action flick with flashes of romance tucked between. Explosions. It wasn't anything special. But for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself really looking at him. Not the way I always had, not as the boy who had trailed into my kitchen with muddy shoes or left his laughter echoing in my hallways. No, this was different. He wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown into a man without me noticing it. Broad shoulders, strong arms, a sharpness in his jawline that hadn't been there before. His voice had settled too, low and steady. The kind that fills a room without even trying. He sat stretched out on the couch, his arm casually draped across the back. A posture so effortless and yet so commanding. The realization unsettled me. A flicker of something unfamiliar rippled through me, something I quickly shook off. I reminded myself of who he was, of who I was, of everything that made the thought impossible. And yet, as the minutes passed, I felt the air between us shifting. Every time he leaned toward me to make some remark about the movie, his breath brushed my skin, and it was like sparks catching where there should have been nothing. My body betrayed me. My pulse picked up. My chest tightened. Thoughts tangled in ways I didn't want to name. At one point, our eyes met. Just for a moment, but in that split second, something unspoken seemed to pass between us. Something that made my heart skip. I told myself it was loneliness, that I was reading too much into it, mistaking gratitude for something else. But my body wasn't listening to reason. My body was responding to something primal, something I hadn't felt in years. It terrified me, but at the same time, it reminded me I was alive. Then he said my name, not casually, not the way you call someone's attention. He said it like it meant something. Evelyn. The sound of it in his voice made my stomach turn over. I turned to him, trying to steady myself. Yes, Noah. My voice wavered in a way I hoped he didn't notice. His gaze didn't falter. I just want to thank you, he said softly. Since Mark passed, you've been here. Didn't have to, but you were. And because of that, I never felt completely alone. The words caught me off guard. Throat tightened. I forced a smile, whispered back, Of course, Noah. I'm glad you're here too. But he didn't look away. His voice dropped even lower. When you're around, I feel at peace." The air thickened around us. I felt myself drowning in it. His hand shifted slightly on the couch, hesitant, like he was restraining himself from reaching for me. He didn't need to. His eyes were already doing the reaching. They told me everything. That night, a spark had been lit, and no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, I couldn't put it out. The days after felt different. Everything between us carried a subtle charge. Noah was suddenly more attentive, almost protective. He noticed things. He fixed the squeaky cabinet without being asked, carried the heavy groceries in without a word. He lingered. Longer in the kitchen when I cooked, leaning against the counter, his eyes following me. Not the way someone idly watches, but the way someone sees. His gaze lingered on my hair when I brushed it aside, on my hands when I chopped vegetables, on the curves of my body when I leaned down to pick something up. At first, I told myself it was innocent, that I was imagining it, but then I realized I had started looking back. And worse, I liked it, one morning after he insisted on sweeping the floor for me. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. It startled me. I hadn't looked at myself like that in years. For so long, I had only seen myself as a widow, as someone holding herself together with string and tape. But in that reflection, I saw a woman, despite being in my 40s. My body still carried the shape of someone who had cared for herself. My waist was slim, my skin still had its glow, my hair fell long around my shoulders. I touched my face, half in disbelief, as if confirming that I hadn't disappeared. I was still here. I was still a woman who could be seen, who could be wanted. And Noah's eyes, day after day, confirmed that truth in a way I had forgotten. Then came my birthday. I remember that evening like a painting burned into my mind. I walked into the house after a long day of errands and froze. The living room glowed with candlelight. A table was set with flowers and wine, soft music playing in the background. For a moment, I thought I had stepped into someone else's home, someone else's life. Then Noah appeared from the kitchen, dressed in black slacks, a crisp white shirt, his hair neatly brushed. My breath caught. I had never seen him like that. He looked breathtaking. He held a small box in his hand, and his smile was quiet, almost shy. "I wanted tonight to be special for you," he said. Inside the box was a dress. Red, elegant, bold. The kind of dress that makes a statement before you even speak. A high slit, an open back. The fabric slipped through my fingers like water. "Noah, why would you get this for me?" I asked, my voice trembling. His eyes didn't waver. "Because it's your birthday. And you deserve to feel beautiful." I wanted to protest. I wanted to tell him it was too much, that it was inappropriate, that it blurred lines that should never be crossed. But instead, I found myself carrying the dress into my room, closing the door, slipping it on. When I turned to the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The fabric clung to my body like it was made for me. I felt radiant. I felt alive. I felt like I had stepped back into the skin of the woman I used to be. And maybe even into the woman I had never dared to be. I whispered to myself, "This is crazy." But my reflection only smiled back, daring me to believe it wasn't. When I stepped back into the living room, Noah's reaction said everything. His eyes widened, and for once, he didn't try to hide it. "You look stunning," he breathed. My cheeks flushed. I tried to laugh it off, but my heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. We sat at the table. The candles flickered. Between us, the wine warmed my veins, loosening the tight knots of my nerves. We talked, we laughed, we remembered. But then, as the night grew deeper, his tone shifted. His voice lowered, steady and certain. "How is it possible," he asked, "for a woman like you to be alone?" The question wrapped around me like a whisper in the dark. I tried to shrug it off, but he leaned closer. "You don't have to be. Not anymore. You deserve more than loneliness, Evelyn." You deserve someone who sees you. The words pierced me. They broke something open in me. All the walls I had built to keep myself safe, to keep grief and temptation at bay, crumbled in an instant. And when he leaned in and pressed his lips to mine, I didn't resist. Least, not right away. I froze for a moment, torn between reason and desire. But reason had been my companion for too long. Loneliness had been my prison for too long. So when his warmth met mine, I let myself sink into it. It wasn't just a kiss. It was years of silence unraveling. It was need, aching and raw, finally finding its voice. It was everything I had told myself I couldn't feel crashing against me all at once. But then reality slammed back. My breath caught. I pulled away, my heart hammering. "This isn't right," I whispered. My voice cracked on the words. I stood abruptly, stumbling back toward my room. My hands shook as I locked the door behind me. I sat on my bed, head in my hands, whispering to myself that nothing had happened, that it was just a mistake, that I could bury it, forget it, move on. But my lips still burned. My body still remembered. My heart still raced with the echo of him. Hours passed. I must have drifted into restless sleep because the sound of the door creaking woke me. My eyes fluttered open to see his silhouette standing in the doorway. My pulse spiked. "Noah," I whispered, half in shock, half in something I didn't want to name. His voice was low, steady, aching. "I know I shouldn't be here, but I can't pretend anymore." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Time seemed to hang in the air, fragile and suspended. My heart pounded so hard I thought the walls themselves might give way. I knew I should tell him to leave. Knew I should put an end to it right there. But when his eyes found mine in the dim light, everything inside me crumbled. All the grief, the loneliness, years of emptiness, suddenly they were met with something I hadn't felt in so long. Desire, belonging, life. And in that silence, I realized the truth. I didn't just see him as the young man who had grown up around me. I saw him as the one who had brought me back to life. What happened that night changed everything. And my world would never, ever be the same.